guys, and welcome back to Fortune Theory. So today I'm going to be talking about Last Night in Soho, and I will be talking about spoilers in a minute, so just be aware of that. I'll be talking about the reviews, my opinion of it now, and then I'll get on to review in a minute. So, Last Night in Soho is a psychological thriller directed by Edgar Wright, the latest film by Edgar Wright, and I think it was pretty good. It is a very visually colourful film, and metaphorically speaking as well. It's based on this girl that moves from Cornwall to London Soho because she gets accepted into the London College of Fashion, and she ends up having these dreams about a girl who wants to be a dancer and meets this guy, and it twists and turns from there based on the girl she's having dreams about, Sandy's journey. So overall, I wasn't a massive fan of the film. I do, however, think it is pretty good. It is very similar, in my opinion, in terms of the plot devices to The World's End, which is another similar film by Edgar Wright, starring Simon Pegg and, Nick Frost and Martin Freeman, a bunch of other actors I can't think of off the top of my head. It's got very similar plot devices to that, in the fact that certain ways of uncovering characters, stories, and the journey, and uncovering twists and turns throughout the film are very similar. Obviously, World's End is about guys going back for the last pub crawl, and the last pub being the World's End, in their hometown, and this film is about a girl getting accepted into the London College of Fashion in Soho, and she dreams about being in the 60s, and she designs her dress and things of that, as well as her dreams, hallucinations, and what end up being what she sees in day-to-day life and in her dreams being about this other mystery girl from the 60s that wants to be a dancer. The film spirals off of that, and it ends up becoming much more of a psychological thriller at the end, and sort of developing these visions based off this girl and her dreams, and trying to discover and find out sort of how much of this girl is true, and how much of what she's seeing in her dreams and hallucinations in the day are like based off actual crimes and like events that happened in her life, and she sees things, as there's a scene in the film where she's explaining to the police like what she sees and what's happened in her dreams and day-to-day life, and it all goes from there, really, sort of explaining she sees things in reality that happened in the dream, and she meets who she thinks is the guy, obviously older now, that was the manager that Sandy, who she's dreaming of and sees, meets in the story. And what turns out now, is that spoilers from now on, is actually the police officer that she supposedly meets in just about towards the middle end of the story. So we realize the girl gets a job at the pub that this guy now sort of comes and gets drinks at, that believing the fact that you are definitely Jack who met Sandy. And she realizes right at that moment, because he gets hit by a taxi in this scene, that actually this is the police officer that met Sandy towards the end of sort of her stream of events of trying to become this dancer, but realizing that it's, she doesn't like what's going on in her life and how she's getting to it. It goes on from there to basically turn towards Sandy herself, and it unfolds the truth behind the older lady that Ellie is actually staying in. So, if I've lost you, by the way, from me rambling, basically, Ellie, the character that came from Cornwall to study at London College of Fashion, has dreams about Sandy, who wanted to be a singer in the 60s, and she met this guy called Jack, who was a manager in the 60s, who Ellie, the character who came from Cornwall to study in London, thinks she sees Jack in present day as this older guy, and questions and wants to find out the truth about, but then the owner of the pub tells Ellie this guy's a police officer. Then it cuts back to seeing the scene of Sandy being questioned by this guy in this bar about, so what's your name, because she's seen so many guys at this point, it's just a joke or cautious for her if someone asks her or sort of questions her on her answer. So it goes on from there to see that the girl Ellie's been staying with the entire time is actually Sandy, and Sandy has killed every guy, or at least most of the guys that have basically tried to use her and to give her the shot of being a singer or dancer. So we realise Sandy is actually the murderer for all these missing persons cases that Ellie comes across by going to the library and finding out about all these different hidden crimes, and it's all the ghosts that Ellie sees in this room towards the end of the film, and it eventually ends, and I'm stopping blabbering now, with Ellie basically being drugged by the older Sandy, Ellie's new friend trying to help, but getting stabbed by Sandy in present. This is all present day. In the process of that, the house got caught on fire as the police started, and ambulance emergency services basically started coming, and ends with present day older Sandy ending her life in the room that Ellie's been staying in, up at the top floor, as Ellie and her friend escape, and it basically is a happily ever after, as Ellie sort of uses her work from the dreams and sort of inspiration of living in the 60s, and all of the events of like the dresses and the costume of the 60s she uses, and she becomes sort of like, she wins an award at the fashion show because of her work. So that is how it ends. So yeah, without too much of my waffling about the story, too precise on more moments than the other, but overall it's a pretty good film. Definitely go watch it if you're a fan of Edgar Wright's work. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. We'll see you next week for Eternals. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.